Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to What You Want, and thanks for logging on. So what do high horology and mountain biking have in common? Well, both threads intersect in the creation of this watch. The movement within the 13RO was actually field tested by Blancpain CEO Marc Hayek on his mountain bike to assure the durability and the accuracy of the very first models. And the bottom line is this Blancpain Le Brassus Jours 42 millimeters in platinum is one of 260 from the year 2006 that served as the debut platform for the 13RO, Blancpain's first truly modern architecture high horology movement. Now the watch itself takes the design language from the traditional 1980s and 1990s Jean-Claude Biver Blancpain watches, especially the Villeray line, and it transposes that style onto a thoroughly 21st century 42 millimeter case. So if you liked the style of those watches, but they were just painfully vintage in their scale, if you didn't like the look of a 50s or 60s watch on your wrist, but you wanted the Blancpain craftsmanship, the Blancpain design ethic, this is the solution. Because you get the best of both worlds with this one. You get that look, but you also get modern proportions, modern scale, and the satisfaction of the heft of 42 millimeters of platinum with a matching buckle on your wrist, and it really does feel a treat on the wrist. You can see my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, accommodates this watch nicely. Now the case back is well rounded so that it distributes its weight well, and it nestles into the wrist. You can see, although it's about 12 millimeters thick, about 2 of that just sinks into your skin. It's not oppressive. It doesn't have any hot spots or pressure points. It's nestled gently, and it sits very low. With that double-stepped bezel and that cambered crystal, it easily allows a dress cuff or a tight sleeve to ride up and over it. And because we are talking about platinum here, you have that exceptional scratch and scuff resistance that you wouldn't even get on conventional steel, never mind gold. Now the watch has a broad dial, and it has a high ratio of dial to bezel. So while those double-stepped bezel arcs give the case a strong character definition, they don't overwhelm the centerpiece. I like that the bezel and the lugs are distinct parts of the composition and they add strength to the case, but they don't detract or distract from the opaline silver dial at center. And all of the traditional Blancpain design language is there. You can see at the center some very generously elongated white gold polished foy hands, very elegant, easy to read. You can also see there's a radial power reserve at 12 o'clock, counterbalanced nicely by a discrete date window serving as the index at 6. Applied white gold Roman numerals with a beautiful flanking polished case rehaut are gorgeous, and that polished case interior wall visually extends the black printed stick indices of the minute track, so they're mirrored and they appear twice as large as they are. Again, because of the ratio of the bezel to dial, the face of this watch looks even broader than it is, and because of that polished inner track, you can see what appears to be a longer minute index from any given angle than actually exists. It's almost like mirrors inside a restaurant that make it feel bigger. Blancpain achieves that same effect here. Now the watch features, as per its name, 8 days of power reserve, and the highlight there is the movement. 8 days of power reserve thanks to the 13RO. Now the 13RO, engineered and built for Blancpain by Frédéric Piguet, their movement partner within the Swatch Group, and their partner in high horology since the company's revival, Blancpain's revival in the early 80s. These two work in a symbiotic relationship whereby Blancpain provides the fine finish and the design parameters, and Frédéric Piguet provides the hardware. The movement is on par with anything you would find from the likes of Vacheron, Audemars Piguet, Jaeger-LeCoultre, and I mean that in every sense, from the finish to the engineering, and all of the modern engineering standards are represented. Before I talk about the finish, let me unpack the technology in here. How could a watch movement like this, that looks like something out of the back of a Vacheron Patrimony, survive mountain biking? It all starts with a titanium free-sprung balance wheel, very light, very shock resistant. When you actually pull the crown to hack the watch, if you look very closely, you can see the gold individually adjustable variable inertia balance blocks on that titanium balance wheel. By making it very light, it's easier to adjust it finely using those high inertia balance blocks. Also, with 3 mainspring barrels and a very light balance wheel, Blancpain is able to extend the reliable timekeeping span of this watch to 8 days, and that is no mean feat. Traditionally, watches with very long power reserves, because of the inconsistent torque release of the energy over 8 days, 7 days, 10 days, long power reserve watches tended not to be very accurate, or at the very least, they would fluctuate dramatically over that period. Blancpain has solved that using three separate spring architectures within the mainspring barrel, each one giving its torque or hitting its torque peak at a different point in its release, so that when one is ebbing through the release of its power, the other is actually gaining in strength, and it terminates in a very precise, highly adjustable, shock-resistant, free-sprung balance. You can see that the index is fixed, screwed down, so that it can't be displaced by shock. Now, more than that, the movement itself is a phenomenal feat of engineering. You have that ability to stop the balance to set the time precisely to a reference timer. These watches with the 13RO are capable of being regulated beyond COSC tolerances, not just -4, +6 per 24 hours, but sometimes the deviation can reliably be tuned to as precise as ±1 second per 24 hours. This is an extraordinary piece of technology. Now, it has other tricks up its sleeve, including all of the fine finish that you associate with Blancpain: mirror-polished anglage, black-polished screw heads with chamfered slots. You can see that all of the jewel countersinks feature abundant mirror polishing and then a gilt coloration for a traditional look. You can see that the base plate, visible in between the bridges themselves and, of course, below that titanium balance wheel, features a tight and regular perlage pattern, lovingly applied, hand-guided, as well as a radial dressage on the rhodium-plated wheels, circular on the brass-colored wheels of the train. Very beautifully detailed. Everything about this, from the Côte de Genève, which is straight and beautifully rendered with a very subtle, fine, and regular texture between each crest of the wave, to the look of the regulator itself, which under the loop reveals, again, a very finely rendered, regular and straight linear dressage in contrast to the radial dressage of the wheels or the circular dressage of the train. Everything here has been treated at the same level of scrutiny that you would find in any Geneva-built high horology piece. The only difference is this really is like the heart of a 50 Fathoms in the look of a Villeray, because this same movement, the 13RO, formed the basis for the 1315 automatic that's in today's Blancpain 50 Fathoms sport watch. And again, this movement was designed with the 50 Fathoms in mind, so durability was engineered in. Now, one of the things that I like about this that adds a lot of value in my mind, especially since I've seen many of the different watches in the high horology sector, is that Blancpain pairs the watch with a full platinum deployant buckle. And if that sounds elementary, you really need to consider that a lot of brands, including others from the Valet de Jeu who shall remain nameless, have been building platinum watches with white gold buckles for about a decade now. So to get a full platinum watch, and a generously proportioned platinum watch, this is not a skimpy, spindly dress reference, and get it with a full matching platinum buckle, that speaks to the integrity of Blancpain as a watchmaker in the high horology sector, and others would do well to follow their lead. There's a lot to recommend this watch, from its essential aesthetic, which is classical and timeless, to the detailing of its dial, which spares no expense: white gold hands, white gold Roman numerals, beautiful polishing of the interior wall of the case, gorgeous printing, multiple textures, and a very regular and almost semi-metallic silvered opaline look. Everything about it, including the marquee printing, is beautifully done and holds up under 20 power magnification. And of course, on the back, just as beautiful, but beautiful in every sense. There's the aesthetics, and then there's also the engineering. With a Breguet overcoil hairspring, a titanium balance wheel on a free-sprung balance, 8 days of power reserve via a staggered set of springs in 3 separate mainspring barrels, all of the standards are represented. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting maybe the best of 3 worlds. You're getting traditional style, modern proportions in a dress watch with the heart of a sports watch. This is the Blancpain Le Brassus 8 Jours 42mm platinum, one of 260 available from Watch You Want To.